551 here, Big 550 KTRS. We're coming up on the anniversary of the death of Anwar al-Awlaki, who was a United States citizen killed by a drone attack. New York Times national security reporter Scott Shane has written a brand new book called Objective Troy, A Terrorist, a President, and the Rise of the Drone. Good morning, Scott Shane.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Lots of angles with this book. Which way did you go?
Well, you know, I set out to write the book in part to understand something that had puzzled me in the 14 years since 9/11 that I've been writing about terrorism and counterterrorism, and that is basically what is behind someone's decision to devote his life to killing a bunch of strangers, a bunch of civilians. And this guy's story, you know, poses that question in a particularly acute form because he was not only an American citizen, but he'd been a successful, happy Muslim preacher at 3 mosques in the States in the years before 9/11. Seemed to be, he denounced the 9/11 attacks, seemed to be quite moderate in his views, and yet he had ended up at the end of his life with Al-Qaeda, coaching, for example, the underwear bomber who tried to blow up that plane over Detroit on Christmas Day in 2009, and basically devoting himself to trying to kill Americans.
Not only did he evolve, but you also talk in the book Objective Troy, which was his code name, I guess, that
Right.
President Obama evolved. He went into office talking about all these lofty ideas, and then he's ordering drone strikes, killing Americans all over the world.
Yeah, you know, that came as a surprise to a lot of supporters of Obama, I think, a lot of liberal supporters. But what I found in looking a little more deeply into it is that Obama had once famously said in opposing the Iraq War, he was not against all wars, only dumb wars. And I think he'd come to see the model of Iraq and Afghanistan, of, you know, occupying a country for years, that really did not contribute necessarily to making America safer. It generated a lot of enemies, killed a lot of civilians. You know, we kind of got stuck in these morasses. And he actually found the idea of an armed drone very appealing because he thought it could pick off, you know, the ones and twos and, you know, threes of terrorists in these countries, hiding out in these countries, without, you know, upsetting the entire country. And, you know, to a degree, that turned out to be true, although the backlash against the civilian deaths that have occurred has been pretty powerful.
Scott Shane, our guest, he's written a book called Objective Troy, A Terrorist, a President, and the Rise of the Drone. Back in September 30th of 2011, America puts an armed drone in Yemen and shoots this guy down and kills him. He's an American citizen in a country we are supposedly not at war with. I'm surprised there wasn't more of a backlash. I mean, how many laws were broken in that one operation?
Well, that depends on which legal experts you talk to. The Justice Department spent months studying this question and came up with formal legal opinions saying that because this guy had essentially joined the enemy and because he was posing an imminent threat to American security, it was okay to kill him without a trial, without a criminal charge, even though he was an American citizen. And, you know, when I talk to folks about who this guy was and did they think that killing was justified, I'd say most people incline to the view, like, he was a very dangerous guy, I'm glad we got rid of him. But if you ask the question in a different way, which is to say, should the President of the United States have the power to designate a particular American as a dangerous threat and order him killed, you know, most people don't like that idea.
Yeah. Didn't they also kill his son a couple weeks later?
Yeah, I mean, the Awlaki strike itself had been planned for months, and all the intelligence agencies were working on it, and it was considered to be a great victory in the White House and at the CIA. 2 weeks later, another drone strike occurred, and they killed the 16-year-old son of Anwar al-Awlaki, who had no history of terrorism, and you know, was by all accounts a sort of sweet teenager. They didn't know he was there. American officials say privately, they've never discussed it publicly, but they say privately that it was considered to be a terrible mistake and that Obama himself was extremely angry about it. And I can tell you, having been in Yemen, that the death of the teenager remains a very, a source of a great deal of anger at the United States, whereas the death of the father, who was a terrorist, a lot of people accept that as essentially justice.
Scott Shane, New York Times national security reporter. His book is Objective Troy. I have just a minute, Scott. My question is this. If President Bush would have done the same exact thing, the liberals would be screaming bloody murder, the way they scream about Guantanamo Bay, the way they scream about Abu Ghraib. How come there hasn't been more backlash with liberals for President Obama doing what he is continuing to do, which is seek these people out, American citizens or not, with these drones?
Well, that's a great question. There has been, from some liberals, quite an outcry over killing an American citizen. In fact, the ACLU helped Anwar al-Awlaki's father file 2 lawsuits. The first, when Anwar was still alive, to try and get him off the kill list, and when that failed, he went to court again to just force the government to try to explain, what was its case, which was still secret, that this guy, posed an imminent threat. Both of those lawsuits were thrown out, but there really has been some pushback against the idea of, basically executing an American without trial.
Scott Shane, good luck with the book. Objective Troy is the name. A Terrorist, a President, and the Rise of the Drone. Scott Shane, thanks for checking in.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Busy morning traffic-wise. Tim Weiland's been following it all morning long in the St. Louis Closet.